as AI continues to do what AI is going to do, and as there's an interesting amount of kind of industry distrust in the online industry, and as AI is also churning out AI influencers and coaches, and you have no fucking idea what's real and what's not real, it is more imperative than ever to truly embody and walk the walk and have these actual human being relational skills. I am elated to be sitting here with the one and only Dr. Jen Rafferty. And if you are watching this, you are considering coming into becoming certified. You found the School of Becoming. Something in you is like, should I? But how is this going to be different? And what does this mean for me? So this conversation is so intentional because it's really allowing yourself to see yourself and sense yourself in Jen's story, what she's experienced. And also, I can't wait to talk about what she's created in Empowered Educator and have her give us a luscious update on how much it has grown and scaled since the last time we talked. So without further ado, hello, you gorgeous queen.
Hi, it's so good to see you and talk with you and share this story. It's an important one that actually I don't get to share often. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So let's start at the very beginning, right? We know it's a very good place to start. So where were you in life, in yourself, in your career before you chose to get certified?
I was very much in transition. So I had been a teacher, as a music teacher for most of my career. I thought I would do that my entire life. And everything changed during COVID. I got divorced. I moved out of my house with my two kids who were 5 and 7 at the time, the same weekend the world shut down in March of 2020. And so everything changed. Everything that I thought I was the day before, I felt I wasn't. And so, I wasn't a wife anymore. I wasn't living where I used to live. I couldn't teach music the same way. Singing itself was very dangerous at the beginning of COVID. And I had to question really who I was and who I wanted to be and what was the bridge to get there. So in between that time and certification, I went on my own growth journey as one does. And that's where I dove into your work for the very first time and decided that I needed to do more of this. Teacher burnout wasn't anything new, but COVID was a time where you really couldn't ignore it anymore. And so here I was getting all this information. I had already started my PhD in educational psychology. I was getting a certification in emotional intelligence, and I decided to resign from a job that I loved and open a business as a single mom. So I was really excited to hand in my resignation. And then 2 days later, I was a hot, sobby mess on my couch thinking, what did I just do? And what I did was trust myself and invested in myself. And that led me on this gorgeous journey to where I am today. So certification was a natural next step after I was a client of the work myself. I knew that in order to elevate my skills as a practitioner and as a teacher, certification just seemed like a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have so many questions. So I'm getting myself organized. Mm-hmm. You have a background in academia. You were already on your way getting emotional intelligence certified, right? You're getting your PhD. What made you choose this certification? Because we're all well aware that there are plenty of choices out there. So why NIE?
Great question. I think for me, being involved in the community that your space provides felt more holistic than anything I had ever experienced before. So I think it's two-pronged because as I'm saying this, there's also a very practical piece of this. Community is extremely important in growth. Anyone who's done any sort of growing knows that doesn't happen alone. And the people who experience the same framework have a deeper level understanding of how we all operate on a biological level. So when someone's going through their stuff, there's an understanding that happens that's different than other spaces that I've experienced in the wellness space and in the business arena, because this is a really beautiful marriage of both of those things separately. But, complementary, there is this other element of particularly NIE, which is really important that isn't talked about often enough, is mindset work isn't enough. And we can't just talk about our thoughts and our brain and what happens there. We also have to talk about your holistic nervous system and understanding what the body is doing. And the connection that is so explicit in the content of NIE was really interesting to me, because coming from academia, my folks are a 0 on the woo scale. And it's really easy for this stuff to get into a space of energy and spirituality. And when we're talking about academia, those words are no words. And we know, if you do the research enough, the woo space and the neuroscientists all are saying the same thing.
Yes.
However, this work allowed me to easily translate to an audience that needed to hear this in a way that they would understand, and a way that made me feel really comfortable too. So it was, but why NIE? It was community, and the actual content was really appealing to me.
Yeah. I love that. And I'm so appreciative of that call out, because, you've heard me say before, the methodology and the certification, you can accordion it, right? In so many ways, it's so flexible. And the call out of, and if you're working with a population that wants to hear nothing about being an energetic being, you're still going to get them there because it's so rooted in neurobiology, right? Or vice versa. And that's super fun, because listen, you and I both know we're all here. Anyone who's becoming a practitioner, right? We're all living in the world of let's eradicate woo. Spirituality is science. Like, we're all, you know what I'm saying? And that's going to help rise the collective as a whole. So I just appreciate that call out, because I've never articulated it that way. So
yeah, that's, I think, one of the most important things in my role is being a translator. That's come up over and over and over and over again for me in my journey, is how do I translate the work that I've done into a way that my audience can understand and embody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing. So before we get into the outrageous, exponential, I feel so honored to witness and have a front row seat to what you have generated externally, let's talk about internally for a moment, because I know we also know that success is holistic, and we could talk about all the external things you have created and the internal piece. Without that success, we have no holistic success. So what has shifted in you? Like, if you were to say the biggest internal shift I've experienced, or the woman that I am now, how would you speak to that?
Knee jerk to that answer, or to that question, is I am more comfortable now being in discomfort. I know that it's temporary. I know it doesn't define me. I know it doesn't define the moment, and it doesn't make the feelings go away. It allows me permission to feel through the stuff that just sucks, and it feels like shit. Yes. And still know that whatever I'm doing, whatever reason that I'm here, is so much bigger than whatever I'm feeling in the moment. And so it's able to ground me in ways that I just didn't have access before. Not only did I not have the vocabulary, but I didn't have the practice of understanding that and then embodying it. So, all of us, and I'm going to assume you too, on this journey, like, no one's immune to feeling the things and forgetting the toolbox. However, the time between the thing happening and getting to the other side of it has become shorter. I'm able to find my toolbox faster. Mm-hmm. And knowing that has gotten me through a lot of really challenging times. No matter what you're doing, life is going to be lifey, right? But particularly with being an entrepreneur, that is a wild roller coaster ride. No matter how prepared you think you are, it is ridiculous. The things that we go through to build something in this world from nothing. And that requires, and you've said this phrase before, and I've used it because I just love it, a certain level of intestinal fortitude. That's what it is.
It does.
It does. And part of that is practicing. So that to me has been, off the top of my head, answering that question, one of the biggest takeaways that have how different I am now than I was prior to certification.
Yeah, I am obsessed with this answer, and it makes like chef's kiss sense considering what you've generated externally, which we're going to talk all about. Like, wow, because discomfort is the only way to do big shit. Discomfort is the only way to grow, period. Like even if you're shifting from anxiety to ease, right? And in entrepreneurship, which is why I also die on the sword over NIE should be required curriculum for every entrepreneur in the world, because how do you build something out of nothing without understanding your neurobiological levers and all the things, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, yes. And I'm going to say yeah. The identity shifts that need to happen, I mean, we can talk about those separately, but, when now entrepreneurs are coming to me, and saying, hey, Jen, I'd love to talk with you for a little while and understand, here I am in my business. I'd love to talk with you, which is something that also is an unexpected result of the work that I've done. But as they're talking and as I'm listening constantly, what I'm hearing is you are going through an identity shift, and the tools that are required to make that sustainable are what you learn in certification. And so, yeah, I agree. I think this needs to be everywhere for everyone, because we're always learning, growing, shifting our identity. And as an entrepreneur, there's some special sauce that's attached to it.
Exactly. You need to never forget why you're doing it, right? Like that's such a key thing. So to speak to discomfort, which means you are becoming a master of growth, which is really what the game is all about, right? Like, how good are you at growing, at stretching, experiencing those moments of discomfort that allow for the stretching to happen so that your results can reflect that evolution of your identity, the reimprint of your nervous system. So I want to hear, and I'd love the beautiful souls listening to us right now to hear, Empowered Educator, where did it start? Where is it now? What other incredible, tangible results have you generated in impact and revenue and stages, and anything you want to share?
Such a big question, Tracy. So how did it start? It started with an idea. I mean, that's really what it started with. It was, I have an idea, I see a problem, and now I think I have some tools to solve it. And that's how it started. And at the time when I started Empowered Educator, which was spring of 2021, so we're coming up on her 5-year birthday, which is so exciting. Yeah, it's wild. The idea was supported because for me, at the time that I left my job teaching, I was already presenting nationally about adolescent brain development and creating responsive curriculum in the 7th grade general music classroom. I was already living my best nerd life, and I had a little bit of an audience, which was really helpful because it was growing. I had just self-published a book in December of 2019, and I had people already who had that know, love, trust going for me, even though I was not technically in the entrepreneur space yet. I will also say one of the biggest identity shifts for me that happened during the time I made that transition from teacher to entrepreneur. I almost felt like I had to come out about it because I felt so nervous about what people were going to think coming from a teaching space into this entrepreneur space. So once I settled myself in there, I was really able to find roots and grow. So what happened was quickly, I was doubling my revenue for the first few years, which was wild. I had contracts coming in that supported programs in ways that I had only dreamed of or never even thought was even possible for me. I was getting calls nationally to speak on stages where they'd fly me across the country to speak for an hour. And that all was brand new, you know. And I remember talking with you very early on. You told me this great story of how your first keynote was for a Caesar salad. And look at you now. And that was also very much my story. I think that's how we all kind of start out. And the trajectory has been such a fun ride, you know, since it kind of took root. The first thing I think that happened that was a big milestone was the TED Talk that I got. That was incredible. I was at a retreat with you when I discovered it, and it happened to have been at my alma mater, and the theme was empowerment, and I just knew this is mine.
Yes.
And it was. And then about a year and a half after that, we were featured in Forbes. And now I have a book coming out the summer of 2026 with Penguin Random House. So it's just been incredible. Team has grown. The impact has grown. We've established different programmings that serve holistic school communities, not just teachers anymore. We're talking school leaders and parents. Mm-hmm. And the way that this has established itself in the educational landscape is taking root in ways that feel very powerful.
I'm having a moment because I have gotten to love you for so long. And it's like moments of you when you were a client before certification, right? And coach you on the Zoom screen. And when you were getting certified, and, you know, when we would have conversations about you sharing your dream, like what it means to be an empowered educator, just hearing you and witnessing you is just, when I say who we've been is zero indication of who we're capable of becoming. This moment is such that, like, listener, lean into where Jen was in COVID, right? What she shared. And you always lean in, Jen. You're always, yes, if it feels right, you're like, yes, and you commit and you do it. And I'm just in awe, and I need to take this moment to rally and witness because, like, fuck yes, you did it. And in so many ways, it's still only warming up to get started.
Yes.
Oh,
thank
how
you.
does it feel? How does this feel?
Today?
It's entrepreneurship.
Today feels great. And all joking aside, I was on a podcast recently and someone asked, you know, Jen, what's been your peak moment in the last few years? And I can honestly say, and this is the stuff that brings me to tears, every day is a peak moment. Every day that I get to wake up and say, this is my life now. You know, I mean, like, sure, the TED Talk and the book and yeah, sure, it's sexy. People love to hear about that. But at the end of the day, peak is when I wake up in the morning and I get to do this again. You know, that's truly what it feels like to be in this place now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that I share that when we evolve and we really get it and we really embody it and we operate from that level of both embodiment and consciousness, it opens your heart to where you exist in awe, right? Like, I am so with you, just, hi, good morning, look at the light turn on, look at this life I get to live, look at the, you know, just that constant true embodiment of appreciation and awe and gratitude. So I love that you're sharing that, because I think this moment is its own masterclass, is its own lesson, because so often, even for you beautiful soul who's listening that's considering certification is going to give you a tremendous amount of everything. And you have to be willing to realize that it's nothing outside of you that is the solve, right? It's existing in this state. Because this is mastery, what we're really touching on right now. Just the sheer fact, like, here we are. Thank you, universe, God. Let me continue to be the vessel. I get to do this again. What's next? And it doesn't take away what you beautifully said earlier, which is fucking painful. Sometimes we're on our knees, walking through the valley of the shadow of death, not knowing what the fuck is going to happen next. And we have to and get to love the shit out of all of that.
Yes. And I think to that point is what is different too about this certification. The embodiment of it is held to a really high standard because, I read all of the time, and especially in academia, it's this very, very clear. It doesn't matter how many books you have on the shelves and how many books you've read and how many letters are after your name or the certifications that you're accumulating. If you are not actively embodying this work, you're not going to make the impact that you say that you're going to make, period. That's it. And it has to be both. And because of the way that NIE is set up, it is a requirement, and the community also fosters that collective evolution, that collective embodiment, and that makes all the difference.
Yeah, thank you. It is the truth. Because if we're not embodying it, it's staying at the level of the mind, and that can only take us so far. Yeah, yeah. So also inside of your gorgeous company, I perceive the beautiful added, incredible bonus moment of the beautiful souls that work inside your company. Some of them are NIE certified. I had a conversation with Jillian. We had a conversation also, and she was talking all about you and this union with you. So I speak to that, because I think it's really cool to be in a community when, as you're building a big company like yours, you'd be like, oh.
Yes. Over the last few years, I've worked with and partnered with, not just in the company, but supporting people of the company for website and branding, and even graphic design for the book was one of your people, your original people, and so it was a really nice place to say, okay, I know you all have this basic understanding of how things operate. I can trust there's I can trust that there's quality in whatever you're bringing to the table because I know you in a way that's different than other maybe networking events, right? I don't know how Jill takes her coffee, although I do now, but I know her guts, right? Yeah. And so, it's been a beautiful way to expand what's possible because of all the gifts that everyone brings to the table through this work. So as we continue to expand, I'm constantly looking to tap people from this community because I know what they bring at a baseline.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So thank you. This conversation.
I'm going to say something else about that. Is that something else is coming to me?
Everything you want to say.
Yeah. Something else is coming to me about that. Yeah. I'm also going to say, particularly working, I'll use Jill as an example. The way that we do business together is so unique to this work. Mm. It's been a few years now, and we've had to get in the arena together. And what's beautiful about that is we both enter that space knowing who we are, knowing that we are 100% responsible for how we show up in that space, and having a common language to navigate some uncomfortable conversations, which has not only made our connection stronger, but as a result, made the business stronger and has made a greater impact on our clients. And so that's a big piece of this also, that it's not just, hey, what are you bringing to the table here? I can speak to Jill because she's the one that's really in the business and has been for a couple of years now. And I don't know that the company could be here today without us working together the way that we do.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. What you are so beautifully explaining is what happens when you have conscious communication. And not conscious communication because it's a super fun buzzword, but conscious culture, conscious communication, because the individuals that share a purpose are conscious themselves, which means you are regulated, which means you know who the fuck you are also, which means you are available to have the uncomfortable conversation, because you also understand that differences of opinion or conflict isn't negative or wrong. It's the opportunity, like to me, and I've been leaning into this a lot lately, and I'm doing a lot of work around it and new things that I'm creating around it, because everything in our lives and business is relational. And anything that's relational lives and dies in its level of communication, period.
100%.
Right? So calling that out and highlighting it is so wonderful, because it's just like, we just dropped a new podcast episode with David and I sharing our annual marriage tradition, which is all rooted in this same thing. When we come into the arena, we know how to demote the ego. We know how to regulate ourselves. We know how to speak up for our needs. We know how to hear the other, hear.
Yeah.
That is a level of consciousness and mastery that is like, you can only truly experience its magnitude if you practice.
I agree. And the ripple effect has been tremendous, because we have another core member of our team who doesn't come from this space, kind of has her own wellness journey and similar backgrounds in education and music, actually. But her coming into the space of the two of us, knowing the norms of how we operate, has elevated her ability to work and has completely changed her paradigm of what corporate work can be like. You know, I think so many people come from a place of corporate trauma, which I can't speak to myself. I came from, the world of academia, but creating a workspace that is beautiful and conscious and based in true integrity, you're walking the walk, it matters.
Yeah, it's everything. It's everything. And that also, embodiment is walking the walk. In this day and age, and especially in this moment where we're having this conversation and we're getting ready to share the real thing, which is a new piece that I wrote into Irreplaceable. And as AI continues to do what AI is going to do, and as there's an interesting amount of kind of industry distrust in the online industry, and as AI is also churning out AI influencers and coaches, and you have no fucking idea what's real and what's not real, it is more imperative than ever to truly embody and walk the walk and have these actual human being relational skills. Like, you know what I'm saying? That we can always say like the time is now, but the time is like frighteningly now, that you can't put this off any longer.
Right. Please don't put this off any longer.
Right. Exactly.
It's an emergency.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So is there anything else before we close this conversation to the beautiful soul listening? If for any reason they're still on the fence, is there anything else you would want to say?
Yes. This question has gotten me off the fence many a time.
Ooh. Yes.
If you don't do it, fast forward in a year from now, are you going to be in the same place in a year older? And if the answer is yes, then what are you waiting for? Do something.
Yeah.
That is, and I've asked myself that whenever there's, a big investment, a big choice that I need to make, something that I know will allow me to grow in ways that I say that I want, but there's resistance in there. That is always the question that gets me out of that fog. Because the answer for me is most of the time, yeah, I'm going to be the same and I'll just be a year older. And that's not acceptable to me.
Amen. I fully agree. And you know what I love about that, because it lends itself to, I always flashed my last day on earth, right? I'm just like, okay, like if this was it, and that helps always because I'm playing in my she all the way out there, the frame of where would you be a year from now, the same and 1 year older, helps you to feel the fleetingness and like time's going to go on. Where are you going to be? Yeah.
Right. What do you want? If you're even questioning this right now, what is that voice? What do you want? And if you don't do it, where will you be? Next year, still wondering the same things, asking yourself the same questions, experiencing the same stuff. And if the answer is yes, do something about it. You owe that to yourself, and you owe it to the world and the impact that you have, regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah. So true. Amazing. Thank you for this. What a just fucking gift.
You're so welcome.
And the gift of you choosing you and investing in you and creating this company and the ripple effect and the book. We're going to do it. We'll have you on. We'll do the podcast. We'll spread I can't wait for the book. It's going to be so good. Amazing. All right, beautiful souls. Click the link, apply. You know. If you know, you know, you know. Okay. Move on.